too. Not
Hey,
just in it.
I need to give you control, Roger Chang.
Not only am I in it, I'm actually in it.
Yeah, you're going to be able to handle that?
Yeah. I've done it once before, or twice.
That's true. You're an old hand.
I have 2 old hands, in fact.
Hello, everyone. As you can see, I've set up my camera for later election coverage with various buttons from my election collection. I have 3 of the major candidates represented here. I don't have Jill Stein because her campaign never sent me the button I ordered.
It'll probably show up after the election.
I'm guessing it will. Yeah. But everything else is there. And then, of course, I have several past third-party candidates and Eisenhower.
Eisenhower. Beware the military-industrial complex.
Our last great president, Dwight David Eisenhower. Even that's a you can't even say stuff like that anymore. Yeah. Well, I don't. What do you mean?
LBJ all the way, all the way with LBJ.
Hey, LBJ, how many kids have you killed today?
What was? See, like I'm trying to think of all the memes around, like voting memes, election memes. I like Ike is the only one I can really think of, and all the way with LBJ.
Nixon's the one.
Okay.
Was a big one.
No, it was Carter's.
It's Morning in America.
Wait, Reagan. I thought that was Reagan.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. No, Nixon's the one. Morning in America. Don't Stop. That's a Fleetwood Mac song that the Clintons used a lot in the 90s.
Oh, it's The Economy, Stupid.
It's The Economy, Stupid. That wasn't so much of a slogan, but yeah, it was
a
meme around. Dukakis in a hat, in a military hat.
Oh yeah, he was in a tank. That was the worst thing he did. It's like, dude, no.
Dukakis in a hat. Dukakis in a... Read my lips, no new taxes.
Yeah. But that sank his second term, didn't sink his first term. Because he ran his actual first
Well, yeah, because that was his thing from the first term that got him elected. Exactly. Win buttons. Well, win buttons weren't really... Schnago brings up win buttons. I thought those were like just energy campaign buttons. Maybe I'm remembering them wrong.
It's in 4 more years, pretty much everyone's...
Yeah, 4 more years. Maybe it started with Nixon in 72, but it became a chant for every incumbent. Oh, look at that. ICU even found the Dukakis tank picture. Oh, it was inflation, not energy. Thank you, Skip Lives. All right. You ready?
Yeah.
Let's do this. Here we go.
The Daily Tech News Show is brought to you by listeners like me. To find out more, visit dailytechnewsshow.com/support.
This is the Daily Tech News for Tuesday, November 8th, 2016. I'm Tom Merritt. Patrick Beja is out sick today. He had a run-in with the American healthcare system while he was in the country. And in fact, we talked a little bit about it before the show or after the show last week when he was here. He had a tooth issue, and he's recovering fine, but he's getting over that and some jet lag. So Roger Chang, our producer, very bravely stepping in on election day. Thank you, Roger.
Yes, no problem. It was actually quite an uneventful morning since everyone was at the polling booth, and I voted through an absentee ballot. I did a bunch of errands quickly and was able to get through them because there's no one in line.
Yeah, I did the mail-in ballot, which in California you can just sign in to do every year. You just sign up and then that's it. They automatically mail you a ballot every year, which is fantastic. Also, because of Election Day, it definitely affects the news cycle, even in technology news, as everyone waits to see who's going to win the U.S. election. So what we're doing today, we've got a few top stories in here that are notable, and the main topic is going to be based on several emails that we got regarding the Tesla Supercharger change. If you remember from yesterday's show, Tesla announced that they're going to start charging new Tesla owners for use of the Superchargers. Previously, it was free. We'll talk about that in a little bit. We got some great emails, couples from Tesla drivers, But let's start off with the top stories. Sources tell TechCrunch that Twitter is considering term sheets from multiple companies to buy Vine and has narrowed down the bidders. Reportedly, they started with 10 and they've narrowed it down to 5. Twitter announced October 27th that it would shut down Vine but keep the archives online, and apparently got flooded with people who said, we'll buy it for you. Now, some of the reports say around $10 million has been offered. We don't know if that's the average offer or just one of the lower ones, but it is not a lot of money for Vine, although that's more money than they get by not selling it, right?
It's one of those things where you want to make some money off of it, but how you make your money off of it is, do I want to make a lot and kind of come out ahead, or just kind of like cut my losses and come out with something so I'm not completely in the hole for this thing that we bought. It's very interesting because really the valuations are an indication of the kind of value, obviously very much, of what other people think Vine is actually worth, or rather could provide to their respective outfits.
Yeah, it sounds like it's been mostly investment funds, small companies, some companies in China that see this as a way to monetize an archive. There are also some advertising deals that Twitter has with Vine that would just sort of wither on the vine, if you will, or even if you won't. I already said it, it's too late. That could continue on this situation and could continue to bring Twitter some money or some revenue as part of a deal. They might say, hey, we want a cut of this revenue, even if you manage that, or we'll continue to manage the sales, all kinds of things. But with the amount of outpouring of grief over the announcement that Vine would be closed, it doesn't surprise me that you're going to have a lot of folks saying, hey, if we can get this at a bargain, we can definitely turn that interest into some money at least in the short term.
They could. I'm really curious to know how they would do that, though. I mean, within the.
I mean, if nothing else, page views, right? You just say, "Hey, this is the last chance for Vine, folks," or stunts, whatever.
Is this kind of like the pop-up ads of mobile?
Yeah, maybe
advertising.
Snapchat added world lenses and support for the upcoming spectacles glasses. If you remember, they announced that they're going to have a little hardware where you can capture things in glasses that you wear on your face. So all of that's been added to the iOS app today. Instead of altering faces, world lenses change the environment around you. Of the 7 at launch, one, for instance, fills a room with hearts. The other makes it look like it's snowing. And it's not just a filter that goes over the front of you. It actually can detect your face and have things fall behind you. So it is doing some kind of head detection. The forthcoming spectacles glasses also will let the wearer capture and modify the world around them. So this could be in preparation for that. And what is certainly in preparation for spectacles is the fact that a settings page for pairing them showed up in iOS. Still don't have a release date on that hardware, though.
I think this whole thing is actually both super. I mean, it's very zeitgeisty. Like, it's one of those things that kind of leverages what a lot of people would like to do, what are doing with social media. At the same time, I'm wondering the longevity of stuff like this. I mean, is this one of those things where in 5 years it'll look incredibly dated?
Yeah,
like a geo.
Right? Yeah. The question is, how long can they ride it, and can they keep the hits coming? That's what Snapchat has been able to do so well, because people were saying the same thing about disappearing messages. We've almost forgotten that Snapchat launched as a way to send a message to your friend that would disappear. And that was its big advantage. And now it's like, oh, well, now it's the place where you share funny pictures with filters. I think Snapchat thinks it can keep coming up with new ways to keep people interested.
I have an incredibly dystopian and cynical view that government will just buy 1 million of these and hand them out to people who are on public assistance, saying, hey, the world isn't that bad. Just put on these glasses and trust me, things are going to look a lot better.
Through snap-colored glasses?
Yes. I could happen.
I think that they're probably going to be too expensive for that. I don't know. German TV channel NDR reports that privacy and security browser extension Web of Trust should neither be trusted nor used on the web. It apparently collects and sells data on browsing habits, which as long as they're letting you know that, isn't such a big deal if they anonymize you. But the NDR report shows that they are not properly anonymizing the information. NDR was able to determine the identities of some people from the data. The Chrome and Firefox extension pitches itself as crowdsourced ratings. The idea is that you get a bunch of people to use this and rate websites for trustworthiness, for child safety, and then you have a better idea whether to trust the website you're visiting. For the time being, though, Mozilla has removed the extension from its store, and Web of Trust itself removed the extension from the Chrome store. Web of Trust says it's reviewing its privacy policy to make some changes and will allow users to opt out of data collection in the future, as well as overhaul its anonymization practices. But man, when you're in the business of rating trustworthiness and something like this comes out, it doesn't seem like people are going to run back to trusting you anytime soon.
And it's not unironic to notice that the name Web of Trust implies a level of trust, and it provided none of that. So this is the age where you do have digital snake oils salesmen, and people will always be on the lookout, and even more so because there's so the ones they just jump ship to something else, and you will not see them just 3 years until someone's write something nice about them again.
I think the worst part about this is the fact that you have the anonymization practices not working. But even if that was not the case, the fact that Web of Trust is collecting your data and selling it, a lot of people may not have realized. And the privacy policy needed work on that. They did not provide a way to opt out of that. All of those things were bad enough. So they just kind of missed on every point.
And I think it goes to a bigger issue of how companies try to monetize their products. I mean, users, you're not charging them subscription or just a flat out one time other way. And invariably it usually, which is probably the most valuable piece of data they could grab from people outside of just snagging your social security checking account number or something like that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Web of Trust. If you have it on your browser, you might want to uninstall it for the time being and evaluate carefully whether you actually want to ever go back. You may have recently received a Skype message. I know I've received a few from friends with an inexplicable link, usually to Baidu, sometimes to some other website. It goes without saying you should definitely not click on any of those links. They are from hacks. The Verge reports that the issue comes from people who used a common username and password on Skype. So what was happening is, let's say you use the same password and username back a few years ago, 2012, and that's in several of these databases that we've talked about that have turned out to be hacked. Maybe it's the Yahoo one, maybe it's the LinkedIn one, maybe it's another one altogether. But if that same username and password was still being used, they could get into your Skype. What makes it worse is that some people thought they were protected because they log into Skype with a Microsoft account and have two-factor authentication protection on. And that's great. Two-factor authentication protects their Microsoft account. But what Microsoft has been doing is allowing you to continue to log in with your old Skype credentials, even if you've switched over to logging in with Microsoft. So their two-factor authentication wouldn't protect you. And if you forgot that that existed and never went back and changed the username and password, then these spammers can get into your Skype account and send these messages. What you can do if you want to make sure this doesn't happen to you is go log into Microsoft at account.microsoft.com and merge the accounts and then disable the Skype alias. Merging the accounts will change your Skype password to be the same as your Microsoft password, so that might be enough. But if you just want to make absolutely sure, you can disable the Skype alias altogether.
Yeah, I think this is one of those things that's always bothered me about acquisitions of one service for another, is that invariably you're going to run into an issue with security, especially with users who are so familiar with one method of accessing that they decide to leave it in as kind of a legacy door, so to speak. And so many people can have different keys to different doors of your house before one of them figures out, hey, no one's checking out this door, so I'll just pop in.
Yeah.
So it does behoove most users, whether it's Skype or anything else, if it's bought and transitions, for example, if Yahoo gets bought and transitions to someone else, to update your account and possibly your passwords, or see if there are any changes to the way you need to log in or the way your account is handled security-wise.
Yeah, I think that's all true, and that's all good practice. The issue here is a lot of people probably thought when they started using Microsoft to log in, and especially thought when they added two-factor authentication that would cover Skype, and it didn't. Now, I understand why in the early days after Microsoft acquired Skype that they would want to allow the old Skype login to continue to work. That's very user-friendly to say, hey, we're not going to force you over to the Microsoft login for now. But at some point, they either should have forced the change or reminded people that the accounts weren't actually merged. I mean, my account, I had switched to using Microsoft to log into Skype. My account was not technically merged. Now, my old Skype password and username were unique, and so I don't think, knock on wood, that I fell prey to this. At least I haven't seen anything going out. But that shouldn't be. Like, here was an account that I was no longer monitoring and keeping an eye on. Thankfully, I was already in the practice several years ago of not using the same password and username everywhere, but not everybody had learned that. So Microsoft should have sent a notice out saying, hey, if you want to keep your Skype username, go merge your account right now, and you can do that. Otherwise, we're getting rid of it. They should have done that a long time ago.
Or just force the user to sign up for a new account. I mean, it's... Yeah, it's when you deal with large corporations, they often have an internal bureaucracy that doesn't necessarily facilitate the smooth transition of things like that, and it's unfortunate.
So if you're a user of Skype and you're like, oh, well, I log in with Microsoft, I would still go check this, because even though you log in with Microsoft, they may not have merged your account. Mine hadn't been.
I definitely know mine hasn't.
Yeah, and that's probably something you should do so that you have one less thing to worry about.
Well, let me hang up at the show.
Yeah, you can do it later. Facebook also updated the Messenger platform to version 1.3, making sponsored messages available to all advertisers. Ads can only be sent to users that a business is already in conversation with, and users can still block that business from sending ads if they wish, even if they're already in a conversation. Developers will also get, as part of the platform, some better tracking, the ability to deep link into a bot experience, maybe from their website, some improved bot search results, among other things. This probably isn't as bad as a lot of people are going to think at first blush. I have to be, for instance, I get the Wall Street Journal on Messenger. It sends me an update every morning. So they could conceivably send me an ad, and that would be okay because I'm in a conversation with them. And if I look at it and go, I don't want that anymore. I mean, A, I can turn off the Wall Street Journal Messenger on Facebook, or B, I could just block those ads and say, yeah, I don't want that anymore.
I have to say it's a pretty slick integration. It's like, as you said, it's not actually that obnoxious in terms of the way ads are normally rolled out. You're aware of it and you can do something about it, which is like the big two, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing more frustrating to have an ad you cannot get rid of or do anything. It's just constantly staring you at the face. And it does dovetail nicely, because if you're already having an affinity for a certain product or a line of products, they can target. I have absolutely no problem with this at all, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't love the idea of getting spammed with ads, but it doesn't sound like it's spammy. It sounds like I have to actually have made contact with the business before they can even do this, and then it gives me some amount of control. Maybe I'm missing something, but yeah. Finally, Tesla has agreed to acquire Germany's Grohmann Engineering, which does automated manufacturing. In other words, they get robots to build things for people. Tesla plans to add 1,000 engineering and technician jobs to Grohmann's existing 700 employees. Those employees will be added in Germany over the next 2 years. Tesla even has plans to start a gigafactory in Europe at some point. So this is not taking jobs away from Europe. It's actually adding jobs to Europe. Grohmann's automation will also be used to increase production at Tesla's Fremont, California plant. And the company, Grohmann, will continue to serve its other clients. They have clients in the automotive industry, and they say we will continue to serve those competing clients, as well as in the semiconductor industry. They do a lot of automation for semiconductor factories. Tesla wants to increase production from 80,000 cars in 2016, which is a huge increase from what they used to do already, to 500,000 in 2018. The deal to acquire Grohmann is expected to close in early 2017.
I think this is great news because it, at least from a layman's perspective, it does imply that Tesla has bigger, broader plans for their vehicles that encompasses a much higher vehicle production model. I wouldn't say boutique, but Tesla was on the small scale of the number of cars they cranked out, somewhere between like a Bugatti and maybe a Lamborghini. And so, the fact that they have acquired this German automotive automation specialist, I guess that's the best way to put it, is good news, because it does say that, hey, we're going to expand our business, we're going to produce cars at a higher rate, which hopefully means that there'll be more available for people to buy, thereby spurring even greater interest in their product, and hopefully spurring things like what we were talking about, what you and Veronica were talking about yesterday, just having a lot of the infrastructure, for example, charging stations, corridors and stuff like that implemented.
Yeah, this is Tesla making a big bet, obviously, by trying to acquire a subsidiary business that is going to, in some ways, still be working independent of Tesla, but at the same time is essential if they want to ramp up their factories. So,
yeah, and I will say that it's definitely a sign that they went with a company that has significant experience in this area of automation, because car production is not something that you can necessarily. I mean, it is factory, but it isn't at the same time. Manufacturing, it's an entirely different beast. You have suppliers, you have timetables you need to meet. There's so many moving parts to it that it's not an easily fungible process, say like a company that makes lawnmowers.
Waffleophagus in our chat room is saying they're closer to BMW, not Bugatti. And I think you were saying, just to clarify, you were saying they used to be in that very small class, and they've been ramping it up. So yeah,
exactly.
Now they are.
Yeah, they remember what they started. They started with the Roadster. Right?
Yeah.
They started with the Roadster.
And you're saying back then they were at that class, and they've been growing in there ever since.
And I think that's a great sign, because they are definitely have momentum. It does encourage investors to say, hey, these guys have definitely a broader plan. Maybe not the money that I want rolling back toward me, but it is a sign that they definitely have their eye on a bigger picture in terms of market share, not just in North America, but also in Europe, because there is going to be there are conversations about a gigaplant in Gigafactory 2 in Europe.
Thanks to all those who participate in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. All right, as I said earlier, yesterday we mentioned the story about Tesla limiting its free use of superchargers. The details are that owners of Tesla cars bought after January 1st, or even if you buy one now, if you don't take delivery until after April 1st, you'll have to pay. You'll get 400 kilowatt hours of free charging, after which you'll pay a small fee. So maybe about 4 full charges for free before you have to start paying it. We got a number of responses to the news in our discussion, so we're carrying it on today, starting with Dave from the chilly Chair City, Gardner, Massachusetts. I had no idea Gardner, Massachusetts was Chair City. Did you, Roger?
I hope that's not implying the prison-style chair.
No, I don't think so. Okay. I wouldn't jump to that conclusion myself. Otherwise, they wouldn't have much population left. No, I think it's just they make really good chairs there. Anyway, Dave says, I wonder if part of this is to encourage people to install SolarCity's new solar roof and Tesla's Powerwall at their homes so they can charge for free. If the merger goes through, I can see package deals being offered where you buy a new Tesla, solar roof, and Powerwall and save 10%. And if you don't know what Dave's referring to, back on October 28th, Tesla and SolarCity announced new solar roof glass tiles and the Powerwall 2 battery that are meant to work together. No price was announced. We're assuming that a combined package price might be announced after the merger is voted on. The merger of SolarCity and Tesla will be voted on November 17th. But it's an interesting thought to say Tesla. I don't think there is just one reason why Tesla is making this move. But certainly one side effect that Tesla might welcome is if you know you're going to have to pay to charge your Tesla, you might be more interested in buying a solar roof and Powerwall so you can charge it up at home.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I mean, most people are going to be charging at home regardless because of the limited range. I'm just fascinated. I know it's not there, but I'm wildly imagining this vertical integrated service that not only does your car but does your power for your home. They could conceivably move on to other non-automotive but definitely power-related businesses. And I think it's very interesting because all these things stem from the fact that battery pack electric powered the same way that the internal combustion engine provided not just automotive capacity to move cars, but also ability for factories to generate their electricity, aircraft manufacturing and stuff like that. So it's very interesting. What if you have to buy into a Tesla ecosystem at some point in the future?
Well, yeah, that's kind of what that's what they're implying here with the solar roof announcement. And I'm not sure that this charging for the superchargers is due to that, but it will encourage you to say, hey, I'm going to have to pay on the road. I'm going to have to pay at home because I have to pay for my power. But if I have solar power and a Powerwall, then I'm certainly not going to be paying as much, if at all, depending on my power usage and the amount of sun I get. And I can store that up in the Powerwall. It is a compelling offer.
If they did a package deal of superchargers, solar roof tiles, and batteries to like motels, think of any kind of motel that you can. You drive up there, they got somewhere you can charge your car into, and you still right next to your room. It'd be perfect.
Mark is a recent Tesla Model S owner and notes that one of the biggest changes for him is the fact that he has a full tank every morning. You don't get this with a gas car. He plugs in his car at home at night, and in the morning, his tank is full. So with 200 plus miles of range, he says he never charges when he's away from home during the day. But what about road trips, right? You may say, oh, well, that's fine during the work week. But what about when you want to take off to visit Paducah, Kentucky? What about that, Mark? Well, Mark writes, in a gas car, we're accustomed to always filling up when we need gas. In an electric car, it's actually way more efficient to only charge enough to get to the next charger/destination. That means much less time charging on the road and much less cost if it's not free. Also, at least with Teslas, they supercharge quicker when the battery has less of a charge. So on road trips, you actually want to target a lower tank when getting to the next charger with, of course, adequate safety margins. There's a good website called EV Trip Planner that maps out any trip, and it's fun to play with, removing charging stops and seeing the impact to the total trip time. So first of all, it hadn't really occurred to me the benefit of always having a full tank when you're sitting at home. I'm sure anybody who owns an electric car of any kind already is like, yeah, no, that's something that goes without saying. But this idea of changing your route to hit the charging times is pretty fascinating too.
It could bring up an entire industry of just calculating your range based on the amount of stuff you're carrying with you, passengers and all that, as well as distance. I mean, range anxiety will always be a thing, right? And so people have been...
It's a thing with your gas cars, right? I mean, that's not going away until you get self-driving cars, I guess.
And people are so used to, I wouldn't say trained, but they've learned that you keep an eye out and you go for a road with enough gas stations so you can get there. It's true. You can charge up faster if there's less of a charge, but at the same time, a lot of people don't think that way, right? Because no one wants to just have enough
Yeah, I think what you're saying is the downside with this is not that it's electric. In fact, Mark makes a lot of great points. It's that you have to plan. You have to think ahead.
And in many ways, it's almost like a hybrid. Like if he brings up the map of EV Trip Planner, in many ways, it's a larger version of the way I used to plan public transit trips. Right? I catch a bus here. I have to make sure, like, time it so when it reaches my transfer destination, the other bus I need to take is there waiting for me. It isn't right before or right after, and so it's definitely a lot of planning. But at the same time, having a car that you can just hop in the morning and not worry about anything regarding like fuel or range while you're just doing your standard commute is so, I guess, so liberating if you think about it, like not to worry about it.
Yeah, the planning is only on long car trips. It actually removes the planning from your daily life at that point.
Yeah, I'd be curious. I mean, will we see at one point where we'll have mobile charging stations where you just have a big semi with a bunch of solar panels that just keeping these batteries constantly charged? Just pull over to a side and people charge up and boom.
Yeah, there's been some attempts at that. It just doesn't seem to charge fast enough to really make much of a difference. But that could change too. Alex Karcher in sunny Seattle wrote, I think Tesla's shift to start charging for supercharger use is more than a cash grab. I think it will give third parties a reason to start building their own superchargers and give other electric vehicle manufacturers a straightforward way to build supercharger compatible cars. Here's why he thinks that. Tesla, if you recall, he says open sourced. I think some people would take issue with using that term with what they did, but they opened their supercharger patents back on June 12th, 2014, and said they wanted to make their superchargers accessible to any automaker that played by their rules. But 2 years later, no one has taken their bait, and they appear to be shifting to a more familiar pay-per-consumption model. Their previous supercharger sharing rules were a bit roundabout. So Musk said back then in 2014, companies would need to agree to the business model to be able to use the open patents and the open design, which is we don't charge people on a per charge basis. They'd need to contribute to the capital cost proportional to their fleet's usage of the network. So we think that's pretty fair. 2 years later, no company has built their own supercharger, and it's probably because it's really hard to compete with Tesla's price of free. Now that superchargers are regularly at capacity, a third party could probably make a profit building their own chargers. And that wasn't possible before. If you had to agree to Tesla's business terms, you had to agree to do it for free. Now you don't.
I know it's a very interesting thought. I mean, I was thinking that part of it was kind of incentivizing local and state governments to help expand these networks, because one of the big laments about electric vehicles is that because you're not paying for gas, you're not paying the standard gas tax that goes to, granted it's mostly subsidized, but for road maintenance and things like that. And there needed to be an alternative way of recouping that tax money. Some have thought like, well, maybe we'll just charge you by the miles you've driven, and we'll keep a device on you just to track when you're in the state, how many miles you've driven, you get charged at the end of the month. By having superchargers that people have to pay for or even subscribe to, that could definitely make it dent. I don't think it will replace a gas tax, but it could help some way to alleviating some government reluctance to push for these on a broader scale, because they will get some revenue back, I assume.
Yeah. And I had, until Alex brought it up, I had forgotten about this opening of the supercharger, because back when he did that, I assumed we'd get a couple of companies wanting to do this and help expand the supercharger network. And the fact is we have not. So it'll be interesting to see if this is enough to change a company's mind.
Well, I think part of it is your companies don't want to be locked into another company's standard, which may or may not, it might be beneficial to them, but at the same time, as a company, you're a little wary of designing.
Yeah, but, I mean, then if you say that, though, you have to go and say, and therefore Linux will never succeed in the enterprise.
Well, no, I'm not saying that it wouldn't, but I'm just saying that, a reluctance for other companies to follow.
Especially in the automotive industry, which is not as conversant with the benefits of open source and open licenses. Let's get to our pick of the day. Al in autumnal London says, hey, Tom and team, just wanted a better Skype alternative. Maybe he's fed up with this login situation that we talked about earlier. So he's used appear.in, appear.in for a year or so now, and it's great. Mainly because it's entirely browser-based, so there's no need for any participants to download anything to have a group video chat. It supports locked rooms, up to 8 people for free, screen sharing, and more. I actually only even discovered it because I was browsing through the Slack app directory, and you can /command a chat right up for your team in appear.in. Anyhow, wanted to pass that along. Love the show. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Al. Appear.in, create a room. I mean, basically, if you're looking for an alternative to Hangouts, it sounds like it's an alternative to that as well.
So instead of getting a room, get a room. You just create a room.
Appear in a room. People.
Appear.
Yeah.
Appear in one.
Thank you, Al. Send your picks, folks. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com, and you can find more picks at dailytechnewsshow.com/picks. Well, Patrick Beja is missed, but Roger, thank you so much for filling in.
Thank you for having me on the show. It's always good to talk Tesla, however people pronounce Tesla.
And big thanks to everybody who wrote in. We have a sample of the people who wrote in here, but you guys are great and sharing your insights and expertise. And these are good examples of doing that. So keep it coming. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. A couple of pieces of business before we get out of here. First of all, if you support the show, we thank you very, very much. If you're sitting there thinking, I would like to support the show, and Tom always tells that address, but what is it again? It's dailytechnewsshow.com/support. It has our store where you can buy some t-shirts, great gift for the holidays, maybe a DTNS mug in there. And we got some new products coming on the way. You can support us on Patreon. That is the main way people support the show, patreon.com/DTNS. You get things like a weekly tech newsletter, a monthly update on what's happening with the show, and more. Welcome to all our brand new patrons. We've been getting more and more every day. Can't say how happy I am that people are willing to support the show. Andrew Balcom, Callie O'Brien, Christus Kalansis are among our new patrons. And a big thanks to Quinn Canfield, who raised their pledge, patreon.com/DTNS. One last thing. If you want to help Roger.
Yes, help me.
bit.ly/bestofdtns is the place to go. Roger is going to put together our best of show this year. And your idea is to just have our top 5 segments, right?
Yeah. So pick not everyone has to pick 5. Just pick, up to 5 episodes, or not episodes, but segments from episodes where you thought the discussion was great, the topic was great, the guests were great, or perhaps all 3 were amazing and awesome. And you'd like to vote that as one of the best things that you've heard from DTNS this year. Send it in through the Best of DTNS submission form, and I will do my best to cobble it together.
Go do it right now before you forget. bit.ly/bestofdtns. All right, our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're live Monday through Friday. Come join us. Watch it live if you got a chance. 4:30 p.m. Eastern. AlphaGeekRadio.com and DiamondClub.tv are the 2 places you can go. And, of course, our website is dailytechnewsshow.com. Back tomorrow to talk iOS accessibility and some Android accessibility, too, with Shelley Brisbane and, of course, Scott Johnson. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Nicely done.
It was great. I'm so used to popping in there after you.
I know. You don't have to worry about turning your mic back on.
Yeah. Tesla takes charge from Dark Redeemer. Volkswagen from ICU. Wither on the Vine. I think we had something like that a couple of days ago. Vine Voyage. A gripe with Skype. Surviving on the Vine. A lot of vines.
Yeah.
Tesla sparking jobs in Europe.
Everyone's fresh right at the first story. I've noticed that the first story usually generates the most number of title suggestions.
A charged discussion. Tesla leading the charge by sharing patents, blitz cars. That's how I pronounce it in Australia. Patent.
I think in England too.
Someone was telling me that. It's like, what kind of paint are you talking about? No, not a patent. It's like, what? No. Appear in a room. Oh, I get it. Appear in a room. Superchargers and so super after all. Nerds don't make passes at Snapchats who wear spectacles.
That's hard work right there.
Yes.
That's putting in the effort.
I like Tesla takes charge.
Yeah, it fits a couple of our stories there. So
yeah,
Let's do
if
that.
they ever got to the point where the batteries are modular enough that you could pop one out of a Tesla or perhaps another EV vehicle. I mean, that was one of the great things about one of the original thoughts with EVs. Instead of just charging up the battery, you just replace the battery with a new, freshly charged one.
Right. There's what's the name of that cycle company that does that?
Oh,
is it Gogoro?
Maybe. Let me check.
Yeah, they do that for not full on motorcycles, but like moped, scooter like things.
They're so dang heavy. Like they're really heavy.
Well, what's really interesting is how far we're going with the battery technology we have. And imagine what will happen with electric vehicles and superchargers and Gogoros and phones and laptops when we finally hit that battery breakthrough that says, oh, we found like a really lightweight, stable way to create a huge amount of energy or store a huge amount of energy. Suddenly that power wall doesn't need to be so huge. The batteries in your car don't need to be so huge. Your phones can be lighter and your laptops can be thinner.
Hopefully. I'm a little skeptical on that.
Well, you're skeptical on whether the advance will happen. I'm saying let's assume an advance eventually happens because that's usually the history of things is everyone says, no, it'll never happen. You'll never get anything better than steam power. And then we figure something out, right? I'm not going to make a prediction about when.
I want the little arc reactor from Iron Man that he cobbled together in a cave in Afghanistan.
Or whatever, right? Like, but skip past worrying about the details of how or when and figure out like, look at how crazy some of these things will become if we get to that point. Yeah,
I'm thinking less battery storage and just electricity generation.
Well, I think storage is as big of an issue for a lot of this stuff as generation. I mean, yes, there's a whole problem with generating.
No. Like instead of having a battery, an onboard.
Oh, you're saying a replacement for a battery could be an onboard generator,
like an active power generator,
kind of like a fuel cell.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is, of course, you're gonna lose some efficiency because you're converting one state of energy into another, so you only get 80%.
Right, so you have to have super high efficiency. That's all.
Nuclear battery. They've been thinking about that. The issue is. Well, the issue is, what do you do when you get into an accident? Are you just going to have an open nuclear casing just shooting out particles?
I mean, so in some ways, though, that's the same problem of a combustion engine.
It is.
Felt the same way about that. Granted, a nuclear issue is
the
higher level of a problem.
They've seriously considered nuclear-powered jet planes, right? You just really need a way to heat the air around a turbine to create the thrust, but the worry has always been, what if there's an accident, if it crashes?
And if we can come up with a better way of generating that energy, then we don't have to mess with that. That's what the problem with nuclear is. It's not that we can't deal with the fallout, it's that it's really causes complexity and cost, and maybe we can come up with a way that doesn't need that. 0-point modules, says Dark Redeemer. ZPMs.
Yes, and they're no larger than a thermos. If Stargate, the Stargate archives.
That's what I'm talking about. Make Stargate. It's fine to make a lot of Star Trek things come through. Let's make some Stargate stuff come through.
Let's make a Stargate. We'll call it the wormhole, like they did on that one episode. That was actually a pretty funny episode. I like that one. I like when shows can tongue-in-cheek their entire premise.
Poke fun at themselves.
Still better than coal. Coal has, depending on what type of coal, it has a lot of heavy metals in it. Build a Dyson swarm.
It's a Dyson sphere. We're receiving a distress call from the surface. It's Scotty. Spoiler alert. That is an episode of Next Generation.
Yes. That is... It's kind of a sad episode a little bit.
Aye, laddie. It is.
Like, I mean, wasn't he just basically a depressed drunk?
This is my enterprise. No effing. He didn't say effing, but A, B, C, or D. Yeah, he was just kind of a sad. But that's what made Next Generation so cool. Is they
had a lot of sad characters.
They were able to do sad things. No,
the emo of sci-fi.
They didn't shy away from that. People criticize Star Trek a lot of times for being too optimistic, but they weren't always. Look at Scotty. No bloody A, B, C, or D. Thank you, Captain Jack.
So, but like the thing that always got me about Star Trek is they come across so many novel solutions. Like, for example, in that episode, the Dyson Sphere, he literally kept himself alive by being the transporter buffer that entire time for what, 300? Right.
Yeah.
It
makes perfect sense. What's your issue?
No, could you totally like how people
0-point module powering it.
You know how like people can cryogenically freeze themselves hoping they'll be fixed in the future? What if you had some incurable disease in the 20th?
That was also an episode.
Yeah. But like, no, like you take that and you put yourself in a transporter buffer and hopefully in 3,000 years, they'll just beam you back and then fix what's wrong with you. Even though if you had a transporter, if you had like, say, like some sort of localized cancer, they could just beam it out of you. Replace it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is a little, I guess they tried to do some hand waving and say it shouldn't have worked, but it did because he was a brilliant engineer and he was able to hack it to work. But even so, once they discovered that, wouldn't you then share that knowledge with and suddenly from then on anybody can be preserved in a pattern buffer? Or I mean, I guess the way you write yourself out of that, and I'm not sure they did this, I'm pretty sure they didn't, is you say, oh, well, we couldn't really make it work in a stable way. He was lucky that it worked for him that one time.
Well, then spend some money on the research and figure out how he got it to work.
No, but there may be a situation where you're relying on some random events that you can't control, and he just happened.
Well, no, I understand, but like the whole thing is like, well, what are those random events? What are those things?
They're random. They're random. You can't make them happen.
Magic is what you're saying. It's
no,
magic.
It's not magic. It's like when my camera works with Skype. I don't know why. It just happens.
Space magic. It's like the Q. It's like I'm not a supreme being that can do all sorts of things beyond the realm of your understanding. It's not magic. It's just science you don't understand.
Exactly.
That's what Spock used to say. Perhaps they come from their universe. Our physical laws don't apply. Like magic.
Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Yeah. Asimov. What was the one?
No, that's Clark, isn't it?
Oh, that's right. Is it Clark or Asimov?
Oh, now I can't remember. Now you've overwritten that part of my brain.
Asimov sufficiently advanced.
I thought that was Art. I know Art did satellites too.
No, it's Clark.
It is. Okay.
You win.
I win this round.
What's the inverse for magic? There's one for magic, and it's so funny because it's really just a tongue-in-cheek take. Magic. Any sufficiently analyzed magic? No, any sufficiently
analyzed magic.
Magic is indistinguishable from science.
Oh, that's good. I like that. Stealing the gravitational energy from another planet like Jupiter. I don't know. I know Jessica says F Jupiter, but I've seen 2001: A Space Odyssey.
You could orbit a collector around the event horizon of a black hole to gather Hawking radiation. Wouldn't it be cheaper just to basically turn the moon into a giant solar collector?
Yeah. Just an onboard singularity.
Like it could power like a fusion reactor, right? And then eventually we'll make it robotic so it could transform and do things for us.
Sufficiently analyzed magic tvtropes.org.
Yep.
Nice, Domovoy. Domovoy. Oh, come on, export. Will ya? I feel like Audacity, after its latest update, got slower.
I don't like Audacity anymore. I don't know. It's just.
What do you like? No, I'm just kidding. It's why don't you like Audacity anymore?
It's just when you use other tools that are so much more intuitive and slick, and it's just like, eh.
And they cost money, though.
And it's true.
I think Audacity gets you everything you pay for.
I know.
Like if you want to use it for advanced things, you're absolutely right. Pro Tools or Audition, they're all much better. But they also have more things than most people need. If you just need to do simple recording and editing, Audacity's fine.
I used to edit our audio in Premiere because it's just easier to work the waveforms in Premiere. Like I could cut, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. T2T2 says, just throw everything through FFmpeg. And Tinvec says, we don't all hate ourselves that much, T2T2.
Roger proposed that we make the moon into no moon. I say
the moon.
I say we make the moon work for us.
Yeah, what's the moon done for you lately?
Aside from bringing and lowering the tides and causing horseshoe crabs to come out for breeding and some other things.
Uh-oh. Leaked NASA paper says EM drive works according to the random website. Well, it's not random. It's Digital Trends. Digital Trends is okay. They do tend to run with things a little clickbaity sometimes. I'd want to see it somewhere else before I...
EM drive.
Yeah. It's that drive that people say defies physics, but a few NASA scientists have been experimenting and come up with some preliminary evidence that it might actually work.
You mean not the electromagnetic wind that everyone thought was raising these little models that they were building? If we could just use the implied energy in Brownian motion between particles, it'd be amazing, limitless. That's what the Vorlons use. That's what the Shadows use. Even the Minbara use a limited form of zero-point energy. How do they do it?
Need. Tesla takes charge. Man, I can't tell you how excited I am that SoundCloud auto-populates from the ID3 tags now when you drive.
I know. Isn't it cool?
It's amazing.
It's like, why didn't you do this before? It's so obvious.
Well, I'm not going to beat them up for something they fixed. That's unfair. But I will say I'm happy they're doing it.
But we do that all the time. Why didn't you do this earlier?
Yeah, I hate that. That's the worst thing in the world, because when you bring someone something and they're like, why didn't you do it earlier? Like, well, fine, then I just won't do it at all. How is that better? Like,
wow, you're passive aggressive.
No, that's not passive. That's just aggressive. Because what is passive aggressive is, why didn't you do this earlier? It's like, oh, well, I see you're very thankful. It's one of my pet peeves. Because it's very backwards looking. It's very punitive.
Punitive. Not to be mistaken.
I didn't do it earlier. And because time travel doesn't exist yet, I can't go back and do it earlier. So you want it now or not?
Yeah, I don't think I'd last long in a job doing that. Well, why don't you make this sandwich sooner? Because the order just came in now.
Yeah, no, seriously. That'd be like going to a McDonald's, ordering a burger. You wait a couple minutes and they bring you here's your burger, sir. Why didn't you give it to me earlier? Well, because we had to make it.
That's my job in a nutshell. I bring them boxes and they wonder why they don't go faster. They go a lot faster if you push them out the window.
Push who? What?
Oh, no, I'm responding to this.
Oh, see, you would do that. You respond out of context, and I have no idea what's going on.
My wife says the same thing.
Looking out of the chat.
So I'm used to the criticism. I think Serafini used to say that. It's like, you always start from the middle. It's like, what are you talking about? You always start a conversation from the middle. Because I told her, it's like, okay, you got to pack your things in a box. It's like, why am I fired? It's like, no, you got to move over there. We're moving desks.
Oh, and she's like, you started in the middle. Why didn't you tell me why first?
Because I knew we were moving. It's one of my failings as a great leader.
Yes, otherwise you would be ruling us all.
Ruling them with.
Of course, this guy in the chat room says, why didn't you tell us about this pet peeve sooner?
This guy.
This guy. Am I right? Okay, these are really blurry on the video, and on audio you can't see, but I have campaign buttons from various people set up in the shot. Can you, Roger, tell what they are? They're pretty blurry.
It's Trump, Pence, I like Ike. I see Johnson and Weld.
Yeah.
Weld. One of them is overlapping. The window is covering the other one here, so I can't see it. Oh, wait, let me do this. There's Perot. Is that Henderson?
Anderson.
That one's overlapping, but I can't. You know what? This really bugs me because I just got an eye test Saturday, so it just feels like I'm just sitting in the thing.
Yeah, this is the worst.
The one between Ike and Johnson. I can't tell them.
That's J. Quinn Brisbane, socialist candidate for president from the 90s. And then at the very end,
just the Ross Perot's the last one I see. Is there another one?
You don't see the one next to Perot, right?
No.
Where my finger is.
No, I do not.
You don't?
I don't.
Let me look at my shot. Yeah, that one, the blue one next to Perot.
Oh. Well, my face covers it. Oh wait, I do that. Clinton.
Yeah.
Klein.
So it's Clinton, Perot, Anderson, Johnson, Brisbane, and then the little chiclets cover it, but it's I like Ike and Trump. There you go. If you were puzzling all episode about that, now you know.
And knowing's half the battle. G.I. Joe. I tweeted about my G.I. Joe hair salon business. G.I. Joe hair salon for a real American haircut. And then you would have a poster of all the characters, and you would just say which haircut you wanted. Do you want the Duke, the Flint, the Lady J, CoverGirl, Scarlet? Scarlet's more just a ponytail. There's the Baroness. You want something a little more Kim Kardashian-ish.
Yeah.
The Destro is just a straight shave if you want to be Moby or Michael Stipe. Who else do you have that you could... Roadblock, I guess, is the same thing. I guess you could do Quick Kick, but that's just your standard Asian guy chop-socky flick haircut from the 80s. Snake Eyes, well, no one knows what Snake Eyes' hair looks like. Besides, his face was supposed to be all messed up, so it'd be hard to imagine his head wasn't messed up either. Storm Shadow. Oh, you could go with the Dreadnoks. That's like your standard biker slash. This guy does the football song. Oh, here, Hank Williams Jr.
All right. I am going to shut down our live stream. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I'm going to shut down our audio. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you are watching live, however, on diamondclub.tv, be sure to hang around for Justin Robert Young, who's going to start pre-show for the Diamond Club election night coverage in the United States. And I'll be joining him a little later on this evening or afternoon for where I am. Thanks, everybody, for watching.